welcome to Pack Talks with BJCV. In this edition, we have got a special guest, my friend and the startup founder who is in news currently, Arjun V Paul. Uh, he and his startup Zoko, they have been in news recently. The renowned startup accelerator program, Y Combinator, they have taken them on board for this current batch of YC21. Arjun and his co-founder and Zoko, they have been doing a wonderful job with messaging and how to tap into the customer engagement part through messaging. The moment you get up from the bed, you are stuck with the phone, and they are saying that brands don't worry about that. We will help you talk to your customers through whatever the messaging channel that they're using, predominantly WhatsApp. So let's hear the journey from Arjun. Welcome, Arjun.
Thanks, Vijay. And thanks for having me. So I'll give you guys a short introduction on Zoko. So what we do is we make it easy for businesses to do sales, marketing, and customer support on WhatsApp. So if you are a business that's using Zoko, your customers can simply WhatsApp you to discover your products, collect payments, get some support, get their questions answered, maybe return the product. Everything without the end customer ever leaving WhatsApp, right? So what we do is we believe that WhatsApp is the internet of India, and if you are a business that wants to do with reach customers, you have to figure out how to do it on WhatsApp, right? And we're building the tools to help you do that. So just like think about it, when phones were first introduced, you could just place a call and place an order with the business. Same thing. Now you can WhatsApp a business to do that. So we've been doing it for about 3 years now, and it's we just figured out how all the parts and pieces move, and things are starting to take off now.
Amazing, Arjun. I was just going through some of the numbers which are available online, and it showed that end of 2018 you were at around revenue of some $800, and from there now you have reached to a level wherein I think you have got a funding of close to around 10 CR in INR. So it's an amazing turnaround in the last two or 2.5 years. So take us through the initial days of Zoko and why Zoko and why WhatsApp?
Yeah, sure. So, that's a question that we always get, especially with Y Combinator. Like, why are you guys the right people to build this business, right? So that's a very important question. And funny thing is, there are no right answers. It's different people do their businesses for different reasons. And the way we ended up doing it is. We got my mom and a friend's wife. They had this home-based business running, selling women's fashion on Facebook. And we, as any family, they say, hey, can you help me do this? Can you help me run ads on Facebook and all that stuff? So at that time, I left my job in, I was working in Europe, in Switzerland. And I'd come back to India and kind of wondering about what to do next and all that, and started helping her out with this, and then realized that most of these conversations were organically moving to WhatsApp, and people would bargain and have their questions answered, and they'll place orders on cash on delivery. So we saw that without having a website, without ever touching a website or what we traditionally would think about when we think about online shopping, people were just using WhatsApp to accomplish a lot more, right? Not just message their friends. And then I started observing WhatsApp and realized that it has kind of become a parallel internet. It's almost like we say a public service now. Where people are super ambitious about WhatsApp and trying to do a lot with it, right? So then we figured, so during the process, we realized that the shopping process was a bit checkered. What I mean by checkered is you have to leave WhatsApp to make a payment. You have to leave WhatsApp to send a picture. All these are essential parts and pieces to doing a sale on, right? So then we figured how can we make it better. A simple example would be a split screen to always keep your images open so you can drag and drop. So what if that was a product, right? So we were able to build that page to like 200,000 followers, and so at almost every day we were out of control and on a WhatsApp conversation. We don't know how many people messaged us, what they were talking about, what they ordered previously. So these are all problems that we had at the time, and we started solving those one by one, right? So it was not with the big plan of building a company or anything. We're just solving problems we had. And then Arjun, you might know him. He's a friend of mine from school. He's like the tech guy I knew. So I used to call him, hey, how do I solve this? And he's like, hey, I can make an API that can help you, message people en masse on WhatsApp and things like that. So we kind of went down the path of solving problems that we had that day. And then other businesses started reaching out to us asking, hey, can we pay you for these services on helping us doing business on WhatsApp, right? So that's when we realized, maybe this is what we should do. This is probably scalable. And then, early last year, we tried selling those tools as to other businesses. And then WhatsApp came out with their API, which kind of made this business possible, right? So another thing about business is the timing, right? We couldn't have built this 3 years ago. And we were on time. The timing was right. When it was released, we already knew a lot of things on what to do. And this enabled us to move forward. And that's how we got started, right? So day one itself, we were making revenue. That's the $800. I don't know where you got that from. But that's the revenue we had. So that's where all our pitch deck starts. This is when we came out with, we had $800, and then we went to like $20,000 in less than a year, and 300 paying customers. So that's the ultimate validation, where when people take money out of their pocket and pay you to use your product, then you know that what do you call it? That they need it, right? That's the YC motto also. Make something that people want, and how you know they want it is when they take money out of their pocket and pay you, right? So that's the evolution of the journey. So it's not a big fancy, mission-driven thing. We just solving our own problems and ended up there.
Awesome, Arjun. So, as the old saying goes, necessity is the mother of invention. So,
Yeah,
yes. So, definitely nice to hear that you are trying to solve a problem and ended up starting a company now, and that company is now part of Y Combinator. So, it's interesting and rightly put by you in terms of one. People say that startups definitely should have some luck to succeed, but more than luck, the timing has to be really perfect.
exactly,
You cannot have it perfect, but at least the timing has to be correct so that your product gets going and you get some response coming in. And
exactly,
the
exactly.
luck
And
part is to
also
support the
one message on that journey is that it's not like you plan something and it just everything goes according to plan. You end up here. You'll be doing something completely different and you end up in another place, right? The one good example is a recent billion-dollar company from YC called Brex. What they started with when they got into YC? They were doing AR, VR, some hardware product, right? Then in the middle of that, they shifted to credit cards for startups, and they're a billion-dollar company now. So it's like almost everything we hear about in the press on, there's mostly people retroactively making up a story to saying how this was my my movie script beginning to this business. Most of the time, it's not right. We see these real startups in YC raising a lot of money, and we know them from when they started. It's a very different paths. So almost there's no standard process for a startup. It's kind of all over the place.
yes. Great. And for people who are not aware of what YC and the startup industry and the startup ecosystem, there are some amazing startups which have come out of the YC. There are thousands of companies which has come out of this YC accelerator system. So it's a great to know that someone from India, and that to Kerala, and that too someone who has been my batchmate and my dance buddy is part of YC.
Yeah.
So on that note, I would like to take you to Kollam and, if I'm not wrong, Infant Jesus, right? The
Yes.
school.
So two schools. I don't want to miss out Trinity Lyceum also. So I went to two schools, Trinity Lyceum and also Infant. So I have friends from both these schools.
Yes. So great. So and then you moved to TKM and you did your engineering in civil. Uh,
Yeah. So
yes. And I'll just add an anecdote there, and then I'll give it to you to then take us through the journey from there. I remember those days when I have come to your house to do the dance practice sessions right in 1999, if I'm not wrong. So it's like 22 years back, and we used to go through the steps and practice, and then we did perform on stage, and it was amazing. Looking back, seeing that we would have never expected that we would be sitting across two countries and two continents and talking about your startup, and I will be interviewing you. So it's it's amazing to see how things go. So take us through after TKM, you finished your civil engineering, and then what happened after that?
yeah. So as you, I don't know whether you may remember, I was crazy about going to the US when we were. So
Yes.
I'd applied to US universities even before I graduated. And I think I got an admission right after the sixth semester. And I applied to a university called Florida, University of Florida, and they let me in without a degree, and then they said, yeah, just submit your paperwork. Maybe give you a couple of years. Just do that before that you can start. So I was just waiting for college to be over so I can go to the US. And I mean, just a lesson on don't overthink your plans. The reason why I chose Florida was that I looked at a list of the best party schools in the US, and Florida was number one for a lot of years straight. So there's consistency there. So I was like, yep, that's the school for me. That's where I'm going, right? So that's how I ended up there. And at that time, oh, by the way, I studied, as you know, civil engineering in college. And I pretty much, went and studied more of it in the US. I started off building bridges. So I'm a construction engineer by training. So if you give me a set of plans, I can build you a big bridge across the Mississippi or something. So that's my technical expertise. It's in actually building the real bridges, like very very large complex bridges, right? And so that was actually a great job and great training with super people, and also it gave me an opportunity to live and work from Louisiana to the north of Canada, pretty much the Arctic Circle, where they call it beyond the tree line because no trees grow there. So cold. So I mean, bridges, ports, rails, they're all built in places where there's pretty much nothing. So I always had like nice houses by the lake and boat and jet ski and also good quality of life. It's a very very hardcore American thing. But it was a great experience. Not the typical Indian engineer experience that you get in the US. Very very different. So I loved it. Did that for quite, I believe, like 11 years or something, and lived and worked in many places. And then, and at that time, I wanted to do something different, and figured, I'll go study business or do something on my own. And then I applied to this college called INSEAD in France. And they surprisingly accepted me. So I think the most competitive demographic in any US college would be the Indian male engineer, right? Because there are a lot of us, and everybody is smarter than the other, and it's super competitive to get it, right? But But I was like one of the rare people who didn't have a computer engineering degree and would done something quite different. And probably inside was like a curious, what is this guy? This guy looks interesting. Probably that's why they accepted. So not because of like amazing skills I had or things that I've accomplished before or anything. So by luck, I'm like one of the few people by lucky enough to just get in to INSEAD, right? But that was a great school. Met super interesting people, and you learn 50% or more learnings that you have in those schools are from your peers, right? People who are super accomplished people, and so that's when all those ideas of startups and YC and doing all these big things. So my classmates probably already have built businesses more than $1 billion from India, right? Just people like you and me building businesses. So that was a good encouragement to see, oh, this is all possible, that you can do all these things. So that's how your mind opens up to all these other possibilities than just having a job and all that stuff. So yeah, and then I spent a few years in Switzerland. A company recruited me from INSEAD. They make power tools and products and services for the construction industry. So that experience they found it valuable, and then I worked with them for a few years in Switzerland, and then decided to do this. So that's the arc from PKM from Kollam back to Kollam, so all the way around.
Amazing, and it's nice to hear that you put it across in a very subtle manner, saying that maybe INSEAD would have taken me because I was one of a kind to apply to INSEAD,
Mm,
uh,
yeah.
but I'm sure that people are what you call it's a dream come true for many people to join INSEAD and pass out from there, because
Mm,
as you rightly put across, the experience and the peer network that you develop in INSEAD is amazing, and the alumni also supports really well. And I am sure that that would have helped you in terms of when you decided to start Zoko. You would have definitely uh, taken that as a support ecosystem in terms of going back and getting
mm,
the support in terms of technology, as well as in terms of how to go about the business and all. Definitely, I
mm.
think INSEAD would have at some point in time helped, the ecosystem would have helped you, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I mean, good thing about INSEAD is you have all these people who are really good at their jobs, and we have that network. We can call them and ask them about like how do you structure a company so that it's in the US and India, or how do you grow your business without talking to anyone personally. So there are all these people who have done a lot of these things before, right? Anything you can think of, there are people in the internet network that have done it before and done it at a really high level, right? And so that's a super valuable network. It depends on how you use it and all that stuff. So especially when you're raising your seed rounds and all that stuff, there's lots of people who would invest in INSEAD companies, INSEAD alumni who invest in other INSEAD companies and things like that. Okay? So that way, it is been super useful. And very good networks. One advantage the INSEAD may have over US schools is that the international network is probably stronger. It's less US centric, and especially if you're doing business in Asia and all that stuff, there are a lot more people you can reach out to, especially in Singapore, in India, in all these countries.
Amazing. So coming back to Zoko, why the name Zoko?
Oh, I watched this with cancer, no real reason. I watched this interview with he was the former CEO of Pepsi. He was like, "Yeah, good brand name shouldn't really mean anything. It should be easy for people to pronounce and remember, right? That's all." So I was looking for four-letter words, and Zoko was available, so I took it. There's no big plans again. You're probably
Great.
noticing a pattern here. There's no overthinking in many of the things that I do.
Yes. So sometimes it's good to keep things very simple and get going,
Yeah.
because I've been talking to startup founders, more than 25, 34 startup founders, and I've seen that few of them get stuck at the initial days in terms of what should be the brand name, how should be the logo look like, and these are some, and on a long run you realize that these are yes, they are important, but then whether you should have spent that much time in
Yeah.
deciding all those things, maybe not.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, if you become like a big company, or you have a shot at becoming a big company, and that's clear later, you can always rebrand and all that stuff. So that's not one thing. So initially, it's no matter how ugly your name is, it's important that you get people to take money out of their pocket and pay you, right? That's the only thing that really matters. And once you've cracked that, forget about scaling. Just get 100 people to love you and buy your product. Then you have the building blocks of a startup, right? Then you can do a lot of things later. So branding, it wouldn't be on my top 10 things to do in a startup, at least till you get to Series A or something. I don't know, it's just my opinion.
Amazing. So since you touched on the funding part, how did you start off? Whether it was bootstrapped, and when did you get your first funding, and from there, how has been the overall investment coming through?
Yeah. So we started off. Well, we did have a bootstrapped version of the business. So we had a rough, probably like 20 customers at that point who were paying us for it. And then we knew what we wanted to do. So it was like two people, right? RML, it's like the one person tech team. We had 20 people paying for the product. And actually, the seed investors didn't believe that we had a one person tech team. He's super, super capable. Uh, and so we had two people, 20 customers, and then we just did the whole roadshow thing. Just cold emailed a lot of VCs and say, hey, we're looking for 150K to try out this idea of ours. And we have made so much progress so far. We have actually paying customers. A rough idea of it was not a very super reliable product at that point, but it was still working. People were paying for it, right? So we had a lot to show investors in that aspect, on how we are going to make money, how big the business is, and all that stuff. And we had two offers from different investing groups. One was a proper VC who wanted to give us a lot of money at that time for a lot of stake, mind you. And then there was a smaller group of angels from Kerala. I'm not sure if you know Vinod and Anas, and these are like NIT grads and TKM people and all engineers who had great jobs and who made some money, and they are silently and efficiently investing in startups across Kerala. And a lot of these successful startups, you'll see probably their names in the early angel rounds and things like that. So there's a very nice group of smart angels who are really going out of their way to help a lot of businesses here. So they had they also made us an offer for lesser amount of money, but for a little stake. So that's all we needed. We were two people anyways. So we took that, and we did hire a couple of people, and then so that's all we raised till we just before YC. So I would say we reached 150K to reach this level where we could show that this is a working business, the model would work. If now we can go to investors and say, we already at break even, and if you invest more money, we could probably grow this business. We know what to do, where our customers are, how to reach them, and all that stuff. So that's a very very textbook funding journey. You raise an angel round, go prove the business, and then raise more money to scale it up to the next stage.
Great. You spoke that you were a two-member team for quite some time, and then you slowly started employing more people into your business. So currently, what is your team strength, and
Yeah,
where are they based out
we
of?
are 8 people, 5 engineers, and 3 in sales. That's including the founders. Right? So,
Amazing. Uh, yep. So it's a eight-member team who has actually cracked into YC and made news. So that's amazing to know that you have managed to do a lean structure and get going with that. Superb.
yeah, definitely. I mean, there are smaller teams in YC. I know of a
Yeah, yeah,
two-member
yeah.
team.
I've seen that there are two-member teams which are there in
Yeah.
YC. Yeah. But if you look at YC and India in terms of, I think this is a first year wherein I think there are 43 startups from India, one of the biggest batch from India coming in,
Yeah,
courtesy
yeah.
COVID, if I'm not wrong.
Mm,
Because COVID has opened up the arena for a lot of people, because you don't have to travel, you don't have to present,
agree.
things happen the click of a button. And I think YC has also realized that this is maybe going forward, this would be the way to go ahead in terms of reaching out to more people. And
Mm,
it will save time, money, travel, and it will be good for them and the startup founders also. And I think it's going to be a win-win situation for the startup founders as well as YC.
yeah.
And so uh, if you look at India and YC, if I'm not wrong, uh, the number of startups which keep coming up in India and the number of people who have actually managed to get into YC, it's
Mm,
very minuscule if you look at that.
mm.
So if you can just help in terms of taking us through the journey, how you get into YC, and what are the key things that helped you to get into YC?
Yeah, sure. So how you get into YC is, make something people want. It's a very simple idea. People try to overcomplicate it. There's really nothing more to it. And how you show that people want it is either people using it a lot, or even better, people paying you money to use it, right? It doesn't have to be a huge amount of money, even if it is like $1,000. If you can show that you have done something, and people are paying you, or people are actually using it, or you're solving a problem that you have, things like that, then YC loves, right? And also, it's not a super complicated process, just 10 minutes. The interview is 10 minutes. You have to do an online application first, and then they'll shortlist. I think they get 16,000 applications last year, and they chose about 300 startups. So they ultimately fund only 1% of it, but the process is really quite simple, right? And so you do an application, and they'll ask you questions about what you have built, what your traction is like, why you build this. Talk about the co-founders. They love co-founders who know each other from before, who have a history of working together, who have done things before. All these are great things to show. And they also thinking, hey, if this works, there might be a very high possibility of failure. But if this works, can this become a really, really large company? The textbook example would be Airbnb. If someone came to you 10 years ago and said, hey, what if you have a free room in your house? Let random people stay there and charge money for it. You have literally said that's the craziest idea that I've heard, right? So the Airbnb founders were talking at YC. They come in, they talk about their journey and all that stuff. And one interesting anecdote they shared was they were meeting a VC, and at a restaurant or something, and the guy ordered a milkshake, and they explained the idea, and the guy got up and walked away, and they thought he was going to the restroom or something. He'll be back, but the guy actually walked out of that. Right? Didn't even bother to finish the conversations, right? And if you had invested like $10,000 in Airbnb at the time, probably was like $100 million now, right? So that's
Correct.
what good ideas very early on sounds like. It actually sounds like a bad idea. But if you manage to make it work, then it can become a large business, lots of money to make, right? So they're looking for really like bad ideas. If they worked, can really make a lot of money, right? How do you make a bad idea work, right? I don't want to stress the bad idea, like unlikely idea. Let's say an unlikely idea. So then, what happens is they look at the founders. Like, can these people make it happen? Are they not giving up? So can you show resilience? So then they look for these qualities in founders, because the number two reason for startup failure after running out of cash is co-founder conflict, right? So that's why they are super careful about who the co-founders are, do they have a history, Have they done anything together before? So all these are good points to communicate across if you do that, right? So then the third thing would be, do people want what you're making? Are they an indication of people wanting what you're making, right? The one way to show it is that there's a huge market. There is something else that's similar working somewhere else. So maybe this is a need, or what are they doing now because they don't have Zoko, right? So that's one way to explain whether people want it, right? So, and that whether people want gets better if they are actually using it, and it gets even better if they're actually paying for it, right? So, if you meet these basic criteria, then you get an interview, and then they fund you, right? The funny thing is, they want to fund all startups that meet these criteria that they do, right? And it's not like they have only 300 spots left. If there are actually 1,000 startups that actually did these things, they would accept everyone, right? They would fund everyone. So it's not that super difficult to get into YC and all that stuff. You just have to do the basics. And a good way to learn about YC, that's what we did, is attend startup school. So YC has this parallel program called Startup School, which is open to all. You can just go there. They teach you like all videos on how to do every stage of the startup and all that stuff. We literally went through YC, learned everything, just did what they told us to do, and we got it, right? So that's the best way. So again, not overcomplicated. It's all in the videos. Just follow that. It's actually quite simple, right? It's been the YC folks during the talks were saying that it has got bigger and better than they ever imagined, and now they want to build on top of that.
Great. So tell me out in terms of what is your plans in terms of making Zoko bigger and better?
Yeah. So I mean, the big audacious, ambitious goal is to become like the platform where every business uses to do business on chat, right? So if chat is the channel that you want to do business on, you would come to Zoko, and we would work on WhatsApp and Facebook and Google's RCS and Apple's iMessage. So any chat platform, people would be able to message these businesses and buy their products and services, right? And all they need is a chat, and we'll be the default platform that every business would use. That's like the big goal. But you'll have to kind of break it down 0 to 1 steps. And next goal is typically a startup. The next stage would be to raise a Series A, and where you call it when this is just what do you call it, a framework of thinking about it is you have to get to like 100K a month revenue, right? So how do you 5x the business in 8 to 12 months, right? So that's the idea, and we have to. At this stage, we should already have let's say a 70% plan on how to get there, and so it's all about executing in the next stage, right? So once you get there, so at this stage, a startup's chances of failure success is like 70% chance of failure, 30% chance of success at when you raise such a round. And if you get to 100K a month and you raise Series A, it becomes 50-50 at that point. And then if you reach 1 million a month in run rate, then your chances increase to 85% chance of success, right? So that's like the rough framework, and basically we just follow that.
Superb. So interesting word that you keep using in the last 30-35 minutes we have been talking is that you are still open to accepting that startups can fail, and it's not given that startups will succeed. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to know that as a founder you are keeping that in mind in terms of you have to keep pushing yourself to make sure that it really works out.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, the startups are very fickle and could die at any minute, right? If nothing else, you could have a co-founder conflict for random reasons, and everything would fall apart, right? And I mean, at YC, if you look at it, that's like 1% of the 1% of the startups that come in, and a large number of YC startups fail, right? Not every YC startup becomes a billion-dollar company. So they've funded, I believe, like 3,000 startups so far, and probably there are less than 30 billion-dollar companies there. Like what happened to everybody else? And so, I mean, a lot of them are actually wildly successful beyond their wildest dreams. But a lot of startups did fail, right? So yeah, I mean, success is never guaranteed. You have to wake up and work for it every day and keep doing it, keep repeating it. You still have to go raise more money, and you still have to execute. You still have to convince people to buy. Nobody buys your product because you're a YC startup. Right? Nobody cares. Your customer doesn't care whether you're a YC startup or a non-YC startup. The customer only cares that you're solving a problem for them. So yeah, YC from a startup's point of view, YC is great for helping you raise money, having the right connections and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, you have to solve the customer problem, and you have to learn, figure out how to scale it in a large manner, right? So yeah, I mean, failure is imminent, so you have to wake up and keep doing it every
Ah,
day. Yeah.
awesome. Who are the customers who are currently on board? How many customers? And I could see that Kalyan is one of the big names I could see from South. So if you can just give us a gist of who all are on board currently.
Yeah, so we have 300 customers right now, and we are mostly focused on smaller independent online merchants who want to use WhatsApp for business, right? By some luck, we happen to get large companies like Kalyan and Pepsi and all that early on while we are figuring out what to do and all that stuff. But now one thing we learned is it's better to focus on like the mid-size independent merchants who really have this need for it, and maybe eventually come back to the bigger players. They use some parts of a product, but not the entire thing. The bigger customers. So I wouldn't lean too much on the big brand names, but our core focus and moving forward would be the smaller independent online merchants who have a real need of doing business on WhatsApp.
Great. Uh, what happens when a customer, because for you they are the customer. So what happens when a small term or a medium enterprise takes Zoko on board? So what actually changes for them?
Yeah. So now, so our ideal, I'll just talk about our ideal customer. They already have a WhatsApp widget on their website, and people are clicking that, messaging them, asking about their products and all that stuff, right? But what's going on the other side of the customer, of that merchant, right? That merchant is actually responding from their phone, or and at some point there'll be too many chats, and they'll be like, okay, I need one more person to help me with this. I'm going to sync it to WhatsApp for web. So now, as a merchant, I can have two people talk to customers at the same time. So now, let's say it goes above 150 or 200 chats a day. Two people are not enough, right? You need more people. So then you can't do it on WhatsApp for business. That's the app for businesses. You need more people to respond from your side to customers, right? So that's when the need for Zoko is born, right? So then they're like, oh, are there any solutions? They'll start Googling and all that stuff, and they'll come across us. So the fact that we can have any number of agents talk to any number of customers on the same WhatsApp number. It's like a 1-800 number on WhatsApp, right? It's like a call center on WhatsApp. So then people would buy us. So then we throw in all these other reasons to buy from us. The fact that, hey, if you're a Shopify merchant, we can use the APIs, connect your products, allow you to take orders. Like, why are you chatting on WhatsApp? Not just for chatting, right? You're actually trying to sell something. So we make those processes easier. You can help discover products, collect payments, send automatic notifications, all that stuff can happen. So your end customers never have to leave WhatsApp, right? So that's it all of a sudden for these businesses who use us, we opened up WhatsApp as a proper channel for business, right? More effective for business, right? They were already having this need, so now we allow them to scale that channel.
Awesome. So, if I understand correctly, right from lead generation to uh, giving the customer an update in terms of the delivery tracking and everything, I think everything can be done through Zogo.
Exactly, exactly. For example, like Facebook and WhatsApp is integrated, or Instagram is integrated. So people will be looking at photos of their friends on Facebook, and they'll come across an ad, and the call to action, like the button you click, would be message on WhatsApp, right? So when the end customer clicks that button, what will happen is that their WhatsApp will open up, and they send a message, and it will come to Zoko, right? So from, like you said, from lead generation to purchase and notifications after purchase, everything can happen without the end customer ever leaving WhatsApp, right? They can talk to the business, buy something, pay, everything happens on WhatsApp.
Great. From an end customer point of view, whether he or she realizes that at any point in time that we are chatting on WhatsApp, or the backend is different software, will they ever come to know about that? Uh,
No. So to them, it doesn't matter. To them, it's just like any other end customers. It's just like any other WhatsApp conversation, except this time they're talking with the business. So they know it's with the business. There are certain indicators on WhatsApp that communicates that you're talking to a business. A common one is that your display
yeah,
name,
business
instead of your
chat.
phone
Yeah,
number, your display name shows up with the green check mark. And there'll be some indication from WhatsApp saying this business is being verified by WhatsApp as a business and things like that. So then it's from a business.
great. Yeah, to just to extend that, do you also help your customers to get the Facebook setup done, verification done, and the WhatsApp verification done? Because a lot of people, since you're talking about your base is going to be small and medium enterprise customers, there are still a lot of people who don't actually understand how all these things work. So, do you help them to go through this process?
Yeah, we do help them, as in we provide them guides on how to get yourself verified and all that stuff. And for some businesses, we just call them and walk them through the process and things like that, right? So it's a pretty straightforward process, as long as you can go through a KYC process with Facebook. Show that you are a real business by providing the right kind of documents to Facebook. They verify you. So it's a process, and it's kind of a standard process. So all you have to do is, as long as you can read, you can understand it and do it. And if not, we can help you through the process. So it's not as smooth as we want it to be, but it's a manageable process.
Great. And to just to step back and check, because you were predominantly dependent on WhatsApp, and if I'm not wrong, in the last 5 to 6 months time, or maybe in the 3 4 months time, there was a lot of chatter going around in terms of whether WhatsApp privacy is a concern,
Mm,
whether Signal will come and take over, and a lot of people were uninstalling WhatsApp and moving to Signal. Though
mm.
I didn't see that wave hitting the peak, it just fizzled out. But so did that impact you, and what is the backup plan in case people at some point in time plan to move out of WhatsApp?
Yeah. So first rule of startup: don't have a backup plan. So we have no backup plans. But just to I mean, looking at the numbers, it's one thing reading things in the press, but you also have to look at the numbers. There's a good mathematical framework to predict whether WhatsApp will go away or not. At least whether Signal will take over or not. In that framework, there's a very good mathematical way we can say. So there's this number called cohort retention. When you hear about these startups where they have absolutely no revenue, they're actually making a loss, and venture capitalists are going and putting in millions, billions of dollars on these startups. They'll be like, "Yeah, these people crazy. This startup is not making money," and all that stuff, right? It's very common to hear that rhetoric from folks. But what's really going on there is, remember that simple sentence: make something people want. If you make something that people want, you can monetize it later. Monetization is a completely standalone activity that has nothing to do with the product, right? You can always monetize later. Alstom, Gustav Alstrom, he's like the guy who came up with the word growth hacking and all that stuff, right? And so he was, believed, the head of growth at Spotify and Pinterest and all those companies. Pinterest, I'm not sure, but Spotify, yes. And so he was showing us, teaching us this framework on how to understand whether people want what you're making, like from mathematical point of view. So what you do is, let's say this month, 100 people downloaded your product and started using it. Next month, you look at how many of those 100 are still using it, right? Let's say it's 90. Then in 60 days, you look at how many folks who downloaded it in the first month are still using it. Let's say it went down to 80. So people will leave, but some people will stick with you. And at some point, so the chart will kind of come down and down, and at some point it will flatten out. So that's the amount of people who roughly will continue to use your product no matter what, right? And for a consumer app, that a good number, just that percentage of people is called the cohort retention, right? And for a consumer app, a good number is close to 50%, right? If you're close to 50%, then you're gold. You are a great app. It's good. You can throw in $1 billion at it, and you can figure out monetization later. We don't care. Uh, and for a and you know what the and when you hear TikTok and Snapchat and all that stuff, it's probably like closer to 50%, right? That's the gold standard. So now, do you know what the cohort retention for WhatsApp is? It's more than 90%, right? What that means is 90% of humans who have ever downloaded WhatsApp still use it, right? So, I bet cohort retention of Signal is nowhere close to a 90%, right? So if I had $1 billion, I would bet it on WhatsApp, right? Because there's a mathematical certainty that a large number of people who are using WhatsApp, no matter what, would still continue to use WhatsApp, right? So that's one of the reasons where, if you're building any product on top of any other API, there's always platform risk, but in the case of WhatsApp, it is as reliable as they come in terms of, hey, it's probably going to be there next year, right? I wouldn't do the same on Signal, for example. Nothing wrong with Signal. They have their strong points and all that stuff, but this is just a general, customers, love probably is more skewed towards WhatsApp than Signal. That's a mathematical fact.
Great.
And
And
as far as privacy and all that stuff, yeah, I mean, that is the, what, how Facebook thinks about it is, it's not like people don't like ads, people don't like irrelevant ads, right? If there is value to them, they probably want to see it, and that's the problem that they're solving. It's not a perfect company by any stretch of imagination. They're still getting there. And yeah, we just along for the ride. We placed our bets already. We are in that train. It's left the station. We are on it.
great, awesome. In terms of when you talk about privacy, in terms of because businesses are dependent on Zoko, and
Yeah.
you are managing a lot of data points for them. So how does Zoko ensure that there's a privacy in terms of the data that you're
Yeah. So
collecting?
we have to reduce privacy down to the tactical, parts and pieces. On yeah, I want privacy doesn't really tell us anything. Like, what do you want when you say you want privacy? And like, do you not want to know who your customers talking to? Do you not want to know who your customers are? Yeah, probably you want to, right? So you're exchanging personally identifiable information, literally saying, hey, this is Arjun, this is my number, I want to buy this thing from you, right? So then probably that's not there. So then mostly these concerns are about what do you do with the information that you have, right? Do you resell it? Do you use it to run ads and all that stuff? We actually don't, right? We absolutely have no interest in, we charge you money. So our business model, the fact that we charge you just to look at our product, whether you use it or not, per month, every first of the month, we hit your card with the charge, right? So that's there, right there. That's where we make money. No, we don't need to rack our brains on how do we use this data and monetize it and all this. So we're charging you money. We already made your money, right? We don't care about your data anymore. Uh, so then what we do, so we actually don't do anything with the data. In fact, we, as part of our API, we give them a delete call, right? What that means is, hey, feel free to use our product if you don't want the reason why we hold on to your data is that when your end customer comes back 3 months from now and messages you, if you want to know who that customer was, what they bought from you last and all that stuff, there, it's right there on the dashboard. If you don't want it, here is a delete API, delete at will. Right after you message, if you want, you can delete your messages, right? So we give them full power, so that way we're not concerned about it. So we have a very good privacy level, much better than most companies give. We actually give them full control over the data, and say delete at will. Here is the API call.
Superb, superb. So, final few questions, Arjun, and then I'll wind up. I know that you will have other meetings lined up. For a customer, when we look at a startup, and then you are talking about a lot of things, API and other things, so they immediately feel that, okay, this is going to be a expensive affair for me. So I don't know if I should get into this or not. But when I looked into your pricing model, it's very affordable. So can you take us through the pricing model, and how people, what is the minimum money that a customer will have to spend to get you on board?
Yeah. So businesses can start from as low as like 1,500 rupees or $25 a month, right? That's in most countries, that's like a expensive business phone line plan, right? Like a cable bill or something. So we just opened up a new channel for you to do business, and if you can make what do you call it, $25 or more from this new channel that you have, it probably makes sense for you to buy the product. And then so that's the fixed cost, and then we have a variable cost according to how many people you speak to and all that stuff. So only if you speak to a lot of people and you send a lot of messages, you pay for it. So as your bills increase, you're probably making more money on the side, right? So it's kind of set up in a very flexible way. And that's one of the points that we luckily figured out, because pricing is one thing a lot of startups spend a lot of time in figuring out how to do it right. So far, it has actually not given us too much headache. People are buying, not complaining too much about pricing, and it's working so far. At some point, when you're a more mature startup, you will start to look at more deeply into your pricing models, whether you are leaving too much money on the table and all that stuff. But right now, we think it's working.
Great. And when you are running behind a startup, you need to dedicate a lot of time. So who takes care of the other stuff what's happening at home?
Oh, at home, you mean? Oh,
Yes.
yes, yeah. So startup is like a 24-hour thing. Yeah, I probably haven't slept at least 2 weeks during the fundraise and all that stuff. So I mean, I've no doubt about it. It's a 24-hour job. Yeah, don't leave your day jobs if you think you're going to have kind of less time or better control over your life and all that stuff. It's a lot more work than having a regular day job. And so that way I got lucky. Ritu, my wife, so her dad runs a business, so she heard all these stories before. Of broken promises, vacation cancelled, things start happening on schedule. So she's like, "Yep, I've heard all these things before. All these sentences sound really, really familiar to me." I don't know. So maybe one tip is, marry a girl whose dad has probably run a business. So then probably half the work is done. Yeah, but I mean. On a more serious note, what do you call it? That's one of the things that founders consciously have to, what do you call it? Solve for is your mental health, things going on at home. Make sure all your bases are covered there. Otherwise, things are already difficult the way it is. It'll become even more difficult, right? If you're not in a good mental space there. And exercise is another thing. Most people ignore. I'm just saying these all wise words. I'm saying I'm not doing any of this stuff. I want to do it. It's like they're trying to revise before the exams. Like, yeah, we know that we are supposed to revise and practice and all this stuff. We always do it last minute, right? So I'm guilty of that. But theoretically, these are things that you should do. Look after your health, physical health. Do exercise. Do something other than your startup. Make sure you actually spend time with your family. Simple things like go on a vacation. Make sure you spend time with everybody, especially with kids and all. It becomes even more important. And good thing is that at YC, for example, there's this conscious shift towards founders with kids and support systems for founders with kids, where they have groups of for founders with kids, so they can exchange notes and know what's a good school to send your kid to, for example, all that stuff. So rely on those support systems. And very important, also have a good co-founder who you can talk to, not about things more than just your startup or how you're going to grow your KPIs and things like that, right? So yeah, so I'm lucky that way. I have a wife who I think understands. At least at for the time being, for next week I'm fine. And a co-founder who I know from a long time back. So this is just one of the things that we do together. So that we got lucky there.
Super. And you spoke about investment. So, are you still looking for investors, or you're done with your funding? So, how does
Yeah,
this?
we are done. So we closed around even before demo day. Luckily, there was a good demand, and we had made good progress during just before that. So our fundraising was relatively easier, and we closed. We were oversubscribed, but we had a hard stop. We only needed that much money. We were done. So very lucky there. The fundraise was oversubscribed and done.
Superb, superb. So, Arjun, I'll wind up, and I'll just put a concluding note, and then I'll take a minute. We can chat offline, and then we can get going.
Oh,
So yes, it was a pleasure having you, Arjun, on the show, and I'm sure that you and Aromal are gonna do wonders with Zoko. And in case you at some point in time decide to change the brand name, also, as you said, brand name. More than the brand name, the product actually matters. So all the best to that, and I hope you become the I would call you will become the Shopify for WhatsApp customers, because everyone is shopping through WhatsApp. So I hope you become the Shopify for customers on WhatsApp, and all the best to that. And I hope you become the recognition comes from many circles in the coming years. All the best to you and Aromal.
thank you, and yeah, thanks for having me on your your program. And I did see a couple of videos when you had first invited me. So I hope this is useful to the folks who watch your show, and hopefully they know about YC and all these lessons and all this stuff. And yeah, and feel free to reach out to me if I set up aside a few hours every week for people who reach out, so I can share what I've learned and things like that. So just know that that's there. But yeah, again, thanks for having me, and it was great catching up after so much time trying to coordinate all
Yes.
this. And, and like you
Yes,
said,
great.
very interesting to see the circle from where we were and where we are now. So it was very nice going through that journey. Mm.
Yep. And I'll like to add one more point in terms of for people who don't or have not seen you dancing. If people in INSEAD or University of Florida, they would definitely have seen you. But uh, if Arjun has to dance now, then you would be definitely trending on Insta Reels, and you would have made a lot of viral content if you're still doing it.
Thank God there was no Instagram and YouTube when we were in school.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh
Great,
God.
great, man. Great.
Yes.
All the best.